A former math teacher finally learned her fate after pleading guilty to sexually abusing one of her students. But under her plea deal, she could spend as little as a few months behind bars for the disturbing crime. In September, 26-year-old Hailey Clifton-Carmack pleaded guilty to one count of sexual contact with a student, dropping several charges she initially faced, including statutory rape, endangering the welfare of a child, and fourth-degree child molestation. Now, months after her arrest, the 26-year-old could get out of prison in as little as 3 months under what some would argue was a sweetheart deal. We first reported on the case in January after the former math teacher was arrested on January 5th. But police in Missouri were first alerted about the case in early December after a student witness came forward and reported the sexual abuse to their school's resource officer. Court documents would reveal more disturbing details. The witness also told police they overheard a phone conversation between Clifton-Carmack and the victim, where the victim told her it was his birthday, and she replied, "I'm out of state, but I can send you money, baby." The student witness told police Clifton-Carmack was too friendly with her students and at times dressed inappropriately, such as wearing tight or low-cut shirts and tight leggings. The 16-year-old victim told the student witness he was the reason Clifton-Carmack's divorce from her husband was pushed through. Police also learned the then math teacher had openly discussed her personal life with her class, including details that she had gotten in trouble with the school for being too close with students, which was later verified by the district superintendent. Investigators say on December 8th of last year, they made contact with Clifton-Carmack to seize her phone through a search warrant, and she handed over the device with no issues. Police say at the time, Clifton-Carmack denied having any kind of relationship with any student outside of school, denied having any contact with the victim outside of school, and denied all allegations. However, her text messages beg to differ. Then in another twist, Clifton-Carmack fled Missouri. On December 23rd, the sheriff's department received an anonymous tip that she was about to bolt and leave to go to Texas, but before she left, planned to meet with a 16-year-old boy. She fled the state after police picked up on her disturbing behavior and was arrested in Garden Ridge, Texas, about 30 minutes north of San Antonio and nearly 12 hours away from where she lived in Lakeway, Missouri. And the shocking revelations didn't end there. Investigators spoke with another witness who alerted them the victim's father was completely aware of the sexual relationship between his son and the former math teacher. Clifton-Carmack reportedly had been over to their home before she fled from Missouri to go to Texas. On January 4th, police arrested the teen's father on a charge of endangering the welfare of a child. And according to court documents, the father revealed to the second witness more disturbing details. Clifton-Carmack and his son used students as lookouts while they had sex during school. The unnamed witness told police they saw the father on the phone with Clifton-Carmack because she asked what was told to detectives. When the witness told the father they planned to go forward to police, according to previous court documents, he responded by saying, quote, "They're gonna do it behind my back, so I may as well let it happen," and said he would lie for his son if he had to. Now, nearly a year after the shocking allegations came to light, the teen's father's case is reportedly still ongoing. But for Clifton-Carmack, she was sentenced to 4 years behind bars. But there's a twist. She could get out years earlier and very soon if she successfully completes a sex offender treatment program. And if she completes the program, the judge could grant her probation after 120 days. However, no chance of her to be a teacher ever again. Her teacher's license will be revoked, and she'll be listed as a Tier 3 sex offender for the rest of her life. A lot to break down in this really disturbing case, so let's bring on former prosecutor, now criminal defense attorney, Florina Altschuyler. Florina, always great to see you, and thank you so much for joining me today. We cover a lot of these stories here at Law and Crime, mainly when the allegations first come to light, but this one's a little bit different and a little bit of an outlier here. We have a former math teacher sentenced to 4 years in prison, but could get out in as little as 3 months if she completes the sex offender program. Do you think that that's a sweetheart deal in this case?
It is a great deal, but you have to remember she pled guilty to a much lower count than what she was originally charged with, and the sentencing parameters allow something like this. So the sentence is well within what's appropriate for what she pled to. The part that makes it a bit of a sweetheart deal is that the prosecutors let her plea to a much lower count versus having her plea to essentially rape, which would require a much more significant prison sentence.
And in your opinion, do you kind of agree with that plea deal?
There's a lot of factors that are considered. She's a young person. She's still in her 20s. I assume that she does not have a criminal history. She would not have been an active teacher had she had one. And that's something that would have been brought up as part of the sentencing guidelines considerations. So, anybody who is employed in a professional capacity and does not have a criminal record in the eyes of the law is going to be treated more favorably than somebody who is unemployed and already has a lengthy criminal history. Those people would be punished more severely. And that's just an objective standard that applies to anybody and everybody who comes before the court. So that's something in her favor. What I will say is an aggravating factor here is the fact that she's a teacher. So it cuts both ways, right? On the one hand, she's employed, good thing. On the other hand, she's committing this crime as part and parcel of her employment. She is meeting these students while being a teacher and grooming them. And this one student in particular was her student that she had sex with. Not appropriate. And all the more egregious because she's doing this as part of her job. So, should she have leniency under these circumstances? I really don't think so, but here we are.
And this case is also a little bit different than the others we normally cover because normally we see parents who find out their child is being sexually abused. They let the school know, they let authorities know, but this one is different because you have a father who knew about this and said, quote, "They're going to do it behind my back, so I may as well let it happen." What do you make of just the father's role in this whole entire saga?
Yeah, not he is not parenting. That is for sure, and that is why he was charged criminally as well. Not only he's not just turning a blind eye to it, he is facilitating this. He would welcome this teacher into the family home so that she could hang out with this child, with his child. So instead of properly supervising his child and reporting a crime that is occurring, his child is being sexually abused by this teacher. He's essentially high-fiving his kid and saying, "Yeah, go get after it." Horrific, not appropriate, and criminal.
And given that the teen's father was also involved in this case, how do you think the victim is feeling throughout all of this?
I think this is something that's going to take time to process, fully understand, and appreciate. This is a high school boy that is going to be subject to social influence, parental influence, all sorts of influence, and societal influence. And there's this perception in our culture, good or bad. I certainly have my opinions about it. That a boy cannot be sexually abused if he's a teenager in school. That is not what the law says. That is not what I believe our social perception should be. Whether the person is male or female, it is a very clear age based determination, and gender is not a factor. So if you are 16 years old, whether you're a boy or a girl, you are underage, you are not capable of consent, and it is a sex crime, period. The end. But of course, there's cultural considerations that come in. And I think, unfortunately, there's still a perception that is gender skewed, and that if a boy is having sex with a young, hot teacher, good for him. And if a girl is having sex with a teacher, she's obviously not having sex with a teacher. That teacher is raping her. And that is a skewed perception. That is not reality. The legal reality is whether the child is a boy or a girl, if they are underage, which this boy is and was, it is a sex crime. The end. It does not matter. So I think this child is going to have to deal with a lot of that and is going to have to figure out how to process it. And hopefully, we'll have appropriate resources in place and counseling to understand this to eventually accept it and to be able to find peace with it and move on and hopefully live a healthy adult life. I will say this also, unfortunately, as a criminal defense attorney, handling sex crimes, a lot of my clients who are accused of sexual abuse and accused of rape themselves were abused as children, and it is a difficult hurdle to overcome. It is difficult to process yourself being abused and not later in adult life becoming an abuser.
And when we cover these types of stories, we're always kind of seeing this pattern here where this one you have an overly friendly teacher with the students. The student witness told investigators she dressed inappropriately, getting too close with students, texting the student victim, leaving scratch marks on this teenage boy's back. The assault occurred in one of the student witnesses' driveways. What do you make of just kind of this typical pattern of grooming, essentially, to from grooming to assault, pretty much that we see when it comes to these teacher student sexual abuse stories?
Well, what I think is particularly egregious in this case, unlike some of the other cases that we've seen, is this teacher was previously reprimanded by the school for being too close to other students, for engaging in inappropriate relationships, perhaps not sexual, but inappropriate conduct, conduct where she was just too close with her students. And they kept her on and they let her continue teaching and they enabled her to have contact with this student and eventually essentially rape him. And that is egregious. I think in this case, based on the evidence we have, the school is going to be held civilly responsible to pay money damages if sued because of their failure to properly supervise and for their failure to intervene here and prevent this from happening when they had notice, and they should have known better and they should have acted sooner. And we see time and time again teachers who get too close to students, and there's always a first time, and the school district maybe does not know because there has to be a first time to then know, to then be on alert. But this here was not the first time. And the district and the school principal and whoever is supervising this teacher should have intervened. They should have suspended her. They should have investigated whatever the other claims were. This really should not happen. And unfortunately, the other issue is um, sometimes we see people who are interested in underage victims putting themselves in positions where they are close with young people, in positions of being teachers, of being coaches, of being Boy Scout leaders, of working in religious organizations with groups for young people. And it is a target rich environment, and it is an environment where they are able to get close to and groom their victims, and and their victims become prime targets, and it's really really unfortunate, and it is the responsibility of those supervising them and those institutions that give them those grounds to intervene versus turning a blind eye.
And in your opinion, as we do see these cases over and over again, what advice would you give to parents or even schools about signs to look out for? Because, not all teachers do these disturbing crimes. But again, as we're going kind of back to this pattern a little bit here, what are your thoughts on any advice you would like to share to parents or school districts?
Well, first of all, if you don't want to go to prison, do not do what this child's father did and facilitate the behavior. Step number one, intervene. I think most parents would find this behavior absolutely outrageous and not acceptable and will not be facilitating this. And so, for those parents who have a moral conscience and who find this to be inappropriate and who are actually concerned about this happening, uh, they need to stay vigilant. They need to know where their kids are going, who they're interacting with, and most importantly, for this day and age, what's going on social media. Do they have cell phones? What are the apps that they have? And how are they communicating on those apps? Are they on Snapchat? Are they on TikTok? Are they sending naked photos around? That's super common. And guess what? That's child pornography, right? They're producing child pornography because they are children. And so when they're taking a nude photo and sending it around, they're now distributing child pornography. And that's something that they're not realizing because they're thinking that they're doing it amongst kids, to other kids. But the content itself is child pornography at that point. So parents really need to know what's going on. And it is a fine line respecting your child's privacy and having a good and healthy relationship with your child while still being a parent, not their friend, but their parent, and offering trusted support and guidance to your child in a way that keeps them safe. Because the primary concern of any parent should be to protect their child and keep them safe, not to be their friend, not to high five them for hooking up with a teacher.
Yeah. As these cases that we see over and over again, I don't think this will be sadly the last time you and I have this discussion or speak about this kind of topic. Lorena, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Before we sign you off, though, anything else you'd like to add just about this case overall?
Yeah, I think I've made my outrage over this abundantly clear. Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me.
All right, Lorena, thank you so much. I appreciate your time again. Thank you. According to reports, the teen victim's father recently entered a guilty plea of peace disturbance and is scheduled to be sentenced on November 6th. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.